As I recently watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy, extended editions again, I got to contemplating more on the sword that was broken. What is the significance of the broken sword forged anew? We all have a good idea of the surface level significance, I am sure. But in this essay, I would like to delve into it deeper and discuss the philosophy behind it, and how it can be applied in our modern day. Now I will not come close to covering every situation in which the broken sword reforged philosophy may be applied, but my goal is to give you, the reader, a starting point, a general philosophy to be applied in numerous ways. Readers of J.R.R. Tolkien's enduring popular trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, are familiar with this concept, and that the broken sword was a token carried by Aragorn which identified him to Frodo as the real Strider, not a spy of the enemy. The letter which Gandalf had left with Barlaam Butterbird to deliver to Frodo contained this verse: "All that is gold does not glitter, not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither, deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken, the crownless again shall be king." This poem not only identifies Strider to be Aragorn when he reveals the sword which he carries to be broken near the hilt, and quotes from the verse authored by Bilbo and copied by Gandalf's hand in his letter, but it also stirs the sparks of hope. The dream which came often to Faramir, and once to Boromir, brought a vision. The eastern sky grew dark, but in the west a pale light lingered, and a voice cried, saying, "Seek for the sword that was broken. In Imladris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken, stronger than Morgul spells. There shall be shown a token, that doom is near at hand, for Isildur's bane shall awaken, and the halfling forth shall stand." This verse speaks of two ancient weapons, the broken sword of Elendil and the ring of power forged by the enemy. One will bring hope, the other doom. The prophecy shows clearly which one to seek. Seek for the sword that was broken. It tells where this sword will be found, in Imladris, or Rivendell as it was known in Westron. In this place there would be a council to decide their fate. The riddle states that the counsels taken there were stronger than Morgul spells, that which Boromir feared. Counsel which Boromir disagreed with. Boromir was a proud man. Pride, Faramir later acknowledges to Frodo, was his brother's weakness. Always he had wished their father Denethor was king and not merely the steward. When he finds it is in the hands of one who holds it by right as the heir of Isildur, but one who has lived all his life in the northwest, which he perceives is kept safe only by the valiant deeds of the men of Gondor, his interest shifts slightly from the broken sword to the ring of power. Is the doom of Minas Tirith then at hand? But why then should we seek a broken sword? These questions are dark with despair, yet scratching for some hope, though riddled with doubts. The question, "But why then should we seek a broken sword?" is spoken both with hope and cynicism toward the prophetic verse. He is not only a prideful man seeking glory through valiant deeds in defense of his country, but a very practical man with little faith in the power of an heirloom sword, wielded by a man whom he deems a stranger to Gondor's need. When he is brought reluctantly to the position of accepting the fact that the ring, being evil, cannot be used for the cause of good, and must therefore be destroyed, he says, "Then in Gondor we must trust to such weapons as we have, and at the least, while the wise ones guard this ring, we will fight on. Mayhap the sword that was broken may still stem the tide, if the hand that wields it has inherited not an heirloom only, but the sinews of the kings of men. It is clear from this statement that Boromir puts a great deal of faith in the strength and courage of men, and little trust, if any, in prophecies and heirloom swords. He is not entirely wrong. Ancient swords have no power beyond the keenness of their blades and the ability of the warriors bearing them. He does, however, underestimate the power of an heirloom blade to inspire courage among an army of fearful men, especially if the one wielding it has the charisma to inspire as well, using such a sword to strengthen his advantage in doing so. Boromir no doubt thinks of the broken sword of Elendil as a testament to his failure. Elendil perished wielding Narsil against Sauron. Although the broken sword was the instrument of Sauron's defeat in the hand of Isildur, Elendil's son, it did not save the life of Elendil himself. To Boromir, it was only a sword, capable of not much more than any other fine weapon. He recognizes a small ability in it to hearken men's minds to heroes of a former age, and give inspiration to emulate their undaunting courage in the face of fear. But he errs because he values the physical strength and martial skill of the leader over his character and the ability of a man of good character to inspire men. The martial prowess of a king or general goes a long way in encouraging men to continue to follow him into battle. But a man whom they love, they're willing to die for. A sword that was broken even in defeat while wielded by a king who died defending the lives and freedom of his people, when reforged and born in the hand of one of equal or greater character, can ignite a flame of hope in a later equally desperate time, especially if the sword is given a new name. And so it was with Narsil. The sword that was broken was forged anew and called Andúril, Flame of the West, which might be interpreted to mean Hope of the West. Many may believe Tolkien to be the originator of the broken sword reforged, but this was a common trope in Old Norse and Old English literature. In the Volsunga saga, Sigmund, son of King Volsung, is granted a sword by Odin, which is broken in King Sigmund's last battle. When his wife Hjordis finds him lying wounded among the slain, he bids her take the shards of his sword to be reforged and given to their son. She expresses her hope for his healing, that he might avenge her father. But the king said, "That is fated for another man. Behold, now thou art great with man-child. Nourish him well and with good heed, and the child shall be the noblest and most famed of all our kin. And keep well withal the shards of the sword. Thereof shall a goodly sword be made, and it shall be called Gram, and our son shall bear it, and shall work many a great work therewith, even such as Eld shall never minish. For his name shall abide and flourish as long as the world shall endure. And let this be a now for thee. But now I grow weary with my wounds, and I go to see our kin that have gone before me." Sigmund's dying speech to his wife Hjordis rings clear with hope of future days, and echoes back plainly the story of Elendil and Aragorn, his heir. But rather, their story is an echo of Sigmund and Sigurd, his son. Another lesser example is the account of the Battle of Malden. Byrhtnoth speaks of bearing to battle swords forged of old. Although he says nothing of his sword having been previously broken, he speaks of wielding an heirloom weapon, and doubtless, if swords forged of old were indeed very ancient, being often used in war, they may very well have been broken and reforged. Byrhtnoth, having made a tactical error, was a truly charismatic leader loved by his men, with an ability to inspire them with fair speeches. He used the device of swords forged of old to his advantage. thereby drawing the minds of his men back to the heroes they heard being sung about by the Shopes and lays. Perhaps they too would be immortalized in song if they demonstrated the same heroic spirit. This kindled the flame of courage in them such that they all died valiantly beside their lord in defense of their homeland. Before his death, Bjortwold, a retainer of Lord Bjortnoth, uttered these words: Hia shall the Herdra, Hiorta the Kenre, Mod shall the Mara, the Ura Mayan Litlath. Will shall be the sterner, heart the bolder, spirit the greater as our strength lessens. They were indeed sung and remembered. Wulfmare, sister's son to Bjortnoth, Wulfmare, son of Wulfstan, Alfwine, son of Alfric, Offa, Leofsuna, Danera, Ashfirth, son of Edgelaf, Edward the Tall, Athelric, the brother of Sibert, Oswald, Eldwald, and Bjortwold. We have well covered the aspect of hope and inspiration that the broken sword represents, but there is another aspect I would like to cover: renewal. An implement of war that in days of yore wrought great victory in the hands of the wielder, ushering in an age of peace, once broken, symbolizes the end of those days of prosperity. But when forged anew, a renewal of those days of peace and prosperity, or perhaps a prosperity greater than in former days, much like was in the case of Aragorn crowned as King Elessar. Why not forge an entirely new sword, one might ask? Because, I would counter, that the old sword, though broken, is not entirely useless. It brings to life afresh the courage and dignity of the warrior who wielded it before, and more than that, the principles of freedom he fought for. The old lays the foundation for the new. Truths are timeless and will endure in every time and guide us into the future. Therefore the old stories, much like the old sword, which appears antique and even broken, are still important and hold relevance in our time. Many want to push the older classics aside and seek for something that appears entirely new or with more appeal, even a ring of power that brings their doom, as it were. But that new, shiny thing that seems so attractive leaves them empty, because it lacks the foundational truths that bring enduring hope and peace. But when we take the truths taught by the myths and legends of the past and forge them anew by learning how to apply them in our own society, in our own time, perhaps with more refined methods than has been done in former times, we can be led forward into not only a renewal of the glory days of old, but days even more glorious than then. I speak of myth not necessarily as fiction or false belief, but as traditional sacred stories about the origin of life and the foundation of a culture. Many are false, one is true. All have a few nuggets at least of truth. I believe the best example of the forging of a new sword from the old is the fulfillment of the Old Testament in the New Testament by Jesus Christ, whose word, the Holy Bible, is the true myth. So why seek a broken sword? It has the metal of foundational truth by which to forge a blade strong enough to withstand the tests of life and lead us into a victorious future. When a society casts these truths aside, it will fall into ruin. I hope you've all enjoyed this video of the reforging of the broken sword. And if you like this kind of content, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Forget not the stories of the past, draw wisdom from them with which you can shape the story of your future.